Hello, my name is Chad. I'm in the band Beneath Vultures, and this is part 3 of my rack build series. If you haven't checked out part 1 and 2, you can kind of watch me put this whole thing together. In this one, I'm going to be talking through the software side of things, where we're going to be getting into signal routing and preset development to make sure that we're leveraging everything that we've built here. The reason that this part is so important is because this is what's going to make it come alive to where we can have a single mono amp out to, let's say, direct to house or to a cab or both. In one scenario, we can also do a stereo situation. So if you're in a band, for example, and you're a single guitarist and you want to have that big full dual guitar attack sound, I'm going to show you how you do this with the Helix here, and specifically for this rack, how you would do it and route to multiple sources. We are about to cover a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. So if you're really interested in this whole signal routing stuff, you might have to slow it down, take notes, rewind, whatever. Just make sure that you're focused so you can catch on to all the signal routing nuances to make all this happen, because we're going to be running a single guitar into this amp and we're going to be converting it into a dual signal to run left and right into the Helix. And then from there, we're going to be running that into the power amp and running that into the cab to get a cab sound. But we're also going to be running the Helix out XLRs into my interface, or you could also consider that the front of house in a live situation. So lots of stuff happening here. I just want to make sure that you are either paying attention or ready to slow down and digest. So to make all the different signal routing options under the sun, we need to really be focusing on the output sources and then the number of channels. So first, what we're going to be doing is looking at a mono direct option. This is probably going to be the easiest one out of them all. So you'll notice right now, let me play my guitar, I've got no sound, right? That's because I am plugged not into the guitar in, which is the multi option here you'll see on the screen. I am actually plugged in to the Mimic in the back of my rack, and that splits out my signal into 2 different left and right options that go into the Helix's 1/4 inch inputs. So from here, we're going to go over here and we're going to choose return 1, which is the first input. Oh, and we got tone. Here's the other thing though, we've got tone here too. Right, so that is your left and right. Now return 1 is your dry with the Mimic, or I should say the first channel is the dry with the Mimic, and you want to try to focus on that one because it's just going to be the cleaner of the two. The other one is the one that they sort of modify and modulate to get that second sound. So now we're going to go over here to and add an amp and a cab for simplicity. We're just going to pick an angle. And we do have tone, I think. Okay, sounds good. Well, it sounds stock. And then we are going to go over here to the output. And since this is a direct patch or preset, we want to be choosing the XLR out because that's where our signal is going to be flowing to. We don't need it going to everywhere else. And there, what you're hearing is just the output going to the XLRs. You're not hearing the cab anymore. So sure, you're going to be adding a bunch of extra effects and noise gates and all that kind of stuff in here, but this is your basic foundation for a preset that handles mono direct signals. So we're going to save this. Okay. And now we're going to move over to mono cab. This is going to be pretty much the polar opposite of that. The signal's still going to be coming from return 1, but it's going to be going out the 1/4 inch outputs from the Helix into the Powerstage preamp and then out to the cab. So that's how we'll get our actual tone coming from the cabinet. And you're going to be hearing that coming from the microphones. And just so you hear, those are stereo microphones. Last preset, we are starting from scratch. We've got no tone. We're going to come over here to the input, drop that on return 1. We've got tone now. We're going to be dropping an amp on there. We'll just use the exact same one that we used before, the angle. We've got our tone there. And we can hear it right now. It's a little hard for you to tell the difference, but it is coming out of the cabinet. but it's also coming out of the XLR. So we're going to focus on just the cabinet now. Cool. Okay, so that is cabinet out, and we're going to save this. That's it. Now we've got our mono direct and our mono cab foundation presets that we can then use to sort of build out other things. We know that everything's routed properly in these, and we can refer back to them as needed. This is where it gets really fun because, like I said, if you're that kind of guitarist that needs to fill the shoes of two different guitarists live, this is where you can do that using the routing that I mentioned before with the Mimic. So we're going to be looking at a stereo signal routing now. So you'll see these two different paths here. We're going to be using those two different paths to split out our signal. So what we're doing here, let me get this set up here. We've got return 1 going into the first path. This is left, and return 2 going into the right path. Remember, the Mimic sends 2 signals into the Helix, and that is what we are splitting out here. So now we've got 2 different paths. So we are going to add an amp and a cab. We're going to pick, once again, the angle here. And we're going to pick the... Let's go with the Helix Rack. So dual rack here. And now we need to go over to the outputs. And this is where the magic happens. So these are going to be XLR outs. So we're not focusing on the cabinet at all right now. We're just focusing on direct. So we're going to be choosing XLR outs. And then we are going to be panning this hard left and hard right. If you want to pan left, that's fine, but I don't like that. Okay, so it's pretty cool. Pretty neat, huh? So now that we've got that, we can save it and do the exact same thing with the cabinet side of things. So once again, return 1, return 2. So we've got our inputs. We're going to drop a cabinet, or just an amp this time, no cabinet, because we do not want cab emulation. So, oops, let's try that again. So amp, we're going to do our angle, and, ooh, that's loud, and our Helix Rack. So we've got our 2 amps, we've got our inputs, we're going to set our outputs to the 1/4 inch out this time because the 1/4 inch is what's going into our preamp and then into our cab. And then obviously those are being mic'd up and recorded by the interface. And then we do, before we do this, we do want to pan it. So 1/4 inch, return 1 is pan to the left, return 2, pan to the right, and this should give us our magic. Yes, it works. Cool. Okay, so that's all set up. We're just going to save that really quick, and that pretty much covers all of our scenarios that we could want individually. There's one more cool thing that you can do with this, though. You can combine this to where you can run your amp cabinet, rewind chat, you can run your cabinet and you can run XLR line out at the same time. This is going to probably be helpful if you're in a situation where you need to give the front of house XLRs, but you need, you know, stage volume. So I've already preset these up for the most part. So this is a mono direct, and this is going to just give you both amp, cabinet, and then your XLR. You probably aren't going to be able to tell too much on this because you're going to have a mixture of both signals, but they are both there, and you can kind of see the routing there. And this is the exact same thing, and I'll run through this really quick. But this is what it sounds like to mix the both at the same time. so that's routing. Basically what's happening here on this last preset is that we are routing the amp directly to the quarter out without a cabinet, so you can skip that cab emulation. But then we're also dropping down here to create a cab emulation for the XLR direct to the front of house. And we're doing that 2 times over, obviously, because we've got 2 different signals. But that's it. I mean, that is routing in a nutshell. If you want to not have to plug anything in or unplug anything other than your guitar cable into the amp. Everything else is just what connects to your output source. So yeah, that's a lot of information to be taking in. Go back, take a look at the graphics, check out the links in the description to get a little closer look at everything. Ask questions in the comments, whatever you need to really feel like you understand this thoroughly and you can implement this in your own situation so you don't have to spend so much time setting up and tearing down at every single gig, practice, recording session, whatever it is. So while I have you here, if you like the kind of music that's on this channel, the kind of stuff that I focus on, you might actually dig my band. It is Beneath Vultures, and you can find us at beneathvultures.com. You can go to Instagram at Beneath Vultures, Facebook at Beneath Vultures, probably Twitter at Beneath Vultures, even though I admittedly probably don't ever log into that account. We've got some content here on this YouTube channel as well, and we are expanding beyond just me. It is becoming a full-fledged band. We do plan on doing some touring and whatnot, so I would definitely appreciate it if you could just take a listen and see if it's your thing. If not, that's cool. In the meantime, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below as usual. I love talking about this stuff. I get totally geeky with equipment as always, and I will see you soon. Thanks a lot.